Look, it's a bird.
It's a plane. No,
Hello guys, I Shoot Gameplays, I'm Fabio Pisco and welcome to my channel. And as for today's video, I'm gonna show you how to upgrade your FSR 3.1 version from 3.1 or 3.1.1 to 3.1.2. That brings several fixes in terms of shimmering and translucent artifacts and pixels and so on, so that's a very nice thing. And of course I'll also show you how to do the same exact process for the DLSS and XeSS, which is just a basic copy-paste process to upgrade your FSR, DLSS or XeSS version. As easy as it can be. Like today's sponsor. Today's video sponsor is GVG Mall, bringing you lots of software deals like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2019 or 2021 with a new Windows 11 design, and for all of these you can use my SKG discount code for 30% off, getting a Windows 11 serial key for $22 and a Windows 10 one for only $15. Then use the key on your Windows settings and you'll have an activated system. So guys, in case you don't really know, DLSS and XeSS have been having this method for a really long time, where you can just copy-paste the DLL files in order to update or upgrade the version of DLSS and DLSS frame generation or XeSS in your game that you have currently. Let's say that your game released or that your game launched with the DLSS 3.5. You can just go download the file or the DLL file of the 3.7, 3.8 that just released today, go to your folder, just copy paste the new DLL and you'll have the DLSS 3.8 integrated in your game. It won't usually be as good as an official implementation, but it will generally bring you better image quality, stability and so on. Generally, not always, but generally. And FSR wasn't that way before, not with FSR 2, not with FSR 2.1 and not with even FSR 2.2 or FSR 3, because FSR 3 was basically FSR 2.2 with upscaling plus frame generation. But AMD changed that with FSR 3.1, where they made developers have that same DLL file for all games that support FSR 3.1. In this case, it is something like AMD fidelity FX underscore the X12 or Vulkan, depending on the API you're using. So now you can just go download that same DLL file and upgrade that same DLL file in your game, making your game going from, let's say, FSR 3.1.0 to FSR 3.1.2 with several other fixes. Now, how do I do that, do you ask? Go to Google, search for FSR 3.1.2 and this website of AMD GPU Open will appear. Just open it, and as soon as you start scrolling down you'll have several options. For example, if you start with FSR 3.1 as a part of the larger AMD Fidelity FX SDK 1.1, and now you start getting the updates. FSR 3.1.1 minor update once again as part of AMD Fidelity FX SDK 1.1.1, and we have new things like AMD Fidelity FX Frame Interpolation Swap Chain 1.1.0, which adds support for AMD Anti-Lag 2. Developers enabling FSR 3.1.1 in their games will have the option to integrate AMD Anti-Lag 2 in between the frame interpolation, meaning that if you're using AMD frame generation, you'll be able to get lower latencies because you now have AMD Anti-Lag 2 as well, which is great. Now we have a number of fixes for issues discovered with FSR 3.1.0, and then we have the FSR 3.1.1 has been tested and optimized for Microsoft GDK for Xbox Series X and S, meaning that we now have it on or optimized for the Xbox Series. And here we also have FSR 3.1.2 minor update, and we have new AMD Fidelity FX FSR 3 frame interpolation GDK sample, bringing native FSR 3.1.2 support to Microsoft's Xbox and desktop ecosystem. And we also have FSR 3.1.2 includes several fixes for issues discovered with FSR 3.1.1 and adds additional developer requested feature support, like fixed dilated depth formats in GLSL shaders. I don't really know what these are, sorry, I'm not a developer. Addition of velocity factor to help eliminate bright pixel flickering in motion, and this is also a very important thing. The velocity factor is very important because in games like Silent Hill, for example, I believe that Silent Hill supports FSR 3.1.1, not the 3.1.2, and what happens mostly is that if we're using FSR 3.1, when we're looking at water in the ground, for example, If you are kind of standing still, the shimmering is very low. But as soon as you start moving, the shimmery appears a lot, so that's the thing as well. This means that the shimmering that you see while standing still, if well programmed, will be exactly the same as the one that you see when moving, and that's very nice. We also have Color Clamp now uses ellipsoid instead of AABB to help with ghosting streaks. Also a nice thing. And we have now, added support for a frame distortion texture, which might be that thing that happens in some games where when you use upscaling the texture gets way lower quality. But maybe that's nothing to do with it, but I believe that might be it. And if developers start implementing the 3.1.2, taking these in consideration and actually using them in their FSR 3.1 implementation, it means that FSR 3.1 will get much better, which is great. Now what you have to do here is go to AMD Fidelity FX SDK 1.1.2, click on it, then you go down here to full source code and binaries are now available on GitHub. You open it and yeah, the light just went down. Go to Fidelity FX SDK 1.1.2, click on it, go down and download the zip file. Download it, save it on your desktop, for example, and now I'm gonna fix the lighting.
A few moments later.
After you have the file on your desktop, just open it, extract the file to the desktop in order to have a folder of the file, which is much more accessible, of course. As soon as you have the folder here, for example, it will appear as Fidelity FX SDK 1.1.2, open it, go to the bin folder, and here you'll have the AMD ACX X64, AMD AGS S64, and AMD Fidelity FX _ the X12, this is for the X12 of course, and AMD Fidelity FX VK for Vulkan. Now, some games will have these files that you'll have to override as well, or at least copy paste, but most games will only have the Fidelity FX the X12 or Fidelity FX Vulkan. After this, imagine that you want to change the files or to update the FSR version on a Horizon Forbidden West or a Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. Let's go to the Forbidden West. Open the folder of the Forbidden West, usually situated in Steam Libraries, Steam Apps, Common, Horizon Forbidden West. And if you go to the folder here, you'll see the file of AMD Fidelity FX the X12, you'll also see the files for XeSS, and you'll also see the files for DLSS. They are here, all of them. Now, if you go to the properties of the file and go to details, you can see that the product version is 1.0.0.0 and the file version is 36.32.9. If you go to the file or to the folder that we have here, if we go to the properties, and you compare both with the details, you can see that this one is the 1.0.1.0, so newer version, and in terms of the file version itself, it is the 38.338 compared to the 36.329, so a way newer version. What you want to do here is as simple as just renaming the file to .dll.old in order to not override it. It is better this way. Then just go to your Fidelity FX folder, copy this file, paste it here, and it is done. You have the newest version of FSR 3.1 in your game. And the same exact thing applies to the DLSS and XeSS as well. So let's start with the DLSS. Go to your Google and search for the DLSS 3.8. As soon as you search for it, you'll have, for example, Tech Power Up files here. With the DLSS 3.8.1, you just go here, download it, and you have the file here for the upscaler. This one is for the upscaler, the DLSS only, and the DLSS-G is for frame generation. So go to the upscaling, dll.old as well, open the file you downloaded, and I'm just gonna minimize this, and just copy the file to your games folder, and bam, you have now the DLSS 3.8 instead of the DLSS 3.5, I believe, something that we had there. Let's see which version did we have before, the 3.5.1. So we jumped from 3.5.1 to 3.8.1, which in some case scenarios is actually much better than the previous version. The same happened with Silent Hill, that had lots of ghosting with the DLSS 3.5, I believe, and as soon as they updated to 3.7, those motion artifacts were fixed in the leaves and so on. Once again, simple, just copy paste, And the same exact thing happens with XeSS as well. Search for XeSS 1.3 or 1.3 GitHub, open the GitHub page, go to the releases here on the right, click on it, and you have XeSS SDK 1.3.1. Download the zip file as well. Then you just want to go into your game and see if it has XeSS. Imagine the game has XeSS 1.1, 1.3, 1.2 or 1.3. Since the first version of XeSS, you can actually do a copy paste to upgrade the XeSS version. The same happened with, let's say, Cyberpunk 2077. When I updated from the 1.1 that the game had to 1.2, yeah, the quality was much better. Now, if you want to see the versions, this is the version that Horizon Forbidden West has, the 1.3.0.28, and if we go to the folder that we have, copy it to the desktop as well, open the folder, go to the bin folder as well, and you'll have the libxess.dll, which is the file, and you can see that the file version is 1.3.32. This is the game one on the right, 1.3.0.28 versus 1.3.1.38. So entirely different versions, and yeah, the version that we have is much more recent and might have some updates, might have some improvements, like it says here, bug fixes and stability improvements, which is great. All you have to do is go to the libxess.dll once again, .old in the end of the file, just go to your folder, bin, copy this one, copy, paste, and it is done. You just upgraded the versions of FSR, DLSS, and XeSS in Horizon Forbidden West. That's how it works. And by the way, you can do the same exact things to games like God of War, Silent Hill 2, or other games with DLSS and so on, but those games might actually have different folders. So for example, for Silent Hill, you need to go to the Silent Hill folder, and the file isn't here automatically, so you need to go to the shproto, binaries, Win64, and the AMD Fidelity FX version will be here. But as you can see, it is only the AMD FSR file. It is already updated, by the way. And if you want to go, for example, for XeSS or DLSS, you need to go to plugins. Then you have DLSS here, binaries, third party, Win64, that's long, and you have here the DLSS file, and you need to go back to XeSS, binaries, third party, Win64, and you have the XeSS file as well. So they might be in different locations, but they will always be in the games folder. You might have to search a bit for it, but they will be there, and then all you have to do is just go .old in order to not lose the official files, and then copy the newer files, and the game will just work with the newer versions of FSR, DLSS, and XeSS. Simple. Now, in order for you to see that I'm not lying and that this actually works, I'm gonna test Horizon Forbidden West a bit. And by the way, can you do the same process for any games that have FSR 3 or that have FSR 2? No, you can't. You can only do this for games that have FSR 3.1 and above. Now, can you do this for older games with XeSS 1.1 or DLSS, maybe DLSS 3.2 and so on? Yes, you can, because NVIDIA and Intel started doing what AMD is doing now way earlier. So even older games with DLSS 3.2, you can just upgrade them to DLSS 3.8 with no issue. And the same goes for XeSS. If the game has a very poor and a very shit implementation of XeSS 1.1, you can just upgrade the game's version to 1.3.1 and it will look much better. So that's a big plus as well. You can't do that for older games with FSR, but you can do that for most games, for most older games with XeSS and DLSS. So we're now running the 4070 Super, and it is crashing a lot. It is not looking good, by the way. The 4070 Super in this game, I believe that the card might be suffering in terms of, yeah, the frame times are really bad actually. We're using FSR balanced, as you can see. It is working. FSR is working. It is not working perfectly, as you can see. But this card doesn't really work that well in this case scenario. This game needs a lot of, yeah, so as you can see, yeah, lots of ghosting because the frame time is completely messed up. It is not entirely because of this, because we're using FSR on an NVIDIA card, and FSR is not optimized for an NVIDIA card. I can guarantee you that if I use FSR with proper frame timing, the leaves won't do these huge ghosting trails. It happens because of this card in particular, I guess. in this game with this version, I guess. So that might happen. As soon as we go to the DLSS and we go to balanced as well, as you can see, the frame times are still a bit messy, but they're much better. And we are now using DLSS 3.8 and it works. As you can see, it works with no issues whatsoever. And if we want to go to XeSS 1.3.0 as well, we can go XeSS balanced as well. Bam. Anything besides DLSS, the frame time is really messed up with this card. And look at Alloy's face, for example. I guess that anything besides DLSS with this particular card at 4K doesn't really work that well, I guess. The FSR does have a bit of shimmering and does have a bit of motion, ghosting and so on, but not like that. I can guarantee you, not like that. So yeah, it is working. And you can do the same for Silent Hill, for God of War, for Ratchet and Clank. You can just upgrade the version of FSR. It might be worse in some cases, but in some scenarios, once again, it will be better. Now, I'm thinking that the issue might be as well the fact that I'm recording, but yeah. But I updated the FSR version on Silent Hill on my computer, and I have been playing Silent Hill with the 7900 XTX, and it has been really great. So yeah, I guess it might be here due to using an NVIDIA card and having these strange spikes and being recording and so on. I don't really know. So guys, that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any doubts, as usual, leave them in the comment section and I'll be there to help as fast as I can. And yeah, it is basically what it is. Just copy the files that you downloaded to the folder to the games folder, update the files of the games folder, or at least .old, and then update it, and it will be done. You'll have the newest version of FSR, DLSS or XeSS ready to be used. And now I'll just have to kick these guys' asses. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget, leave your comment in the comment section, and see you in the next video, guys. Really, see you in the next video. Cheers. You're done, sucker.